I'm Eric.
Hi.
Good to meet you. Yeah.
Good to meet you in person.
A quarantine person. Do you have your YouTube up?
It is loading.
All right, cool.
Yeah. I got distracted.
Oh, it happens.
So I ordered the light, but I didn't realize that it's not. So maybe we are trying to find the other connected part to it. Okay. How's the weather there?
Weather here isn't too bad. It's actually in the 70s today.
It's rather, it's like stormy and it should be snowing, but it's not. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. It does make sense.
It's very mushy. And we're live.
Awesome. You're gonna have to give me what you're.
Hold on, it just
Hi, people on YouTube. If you guys aren't on my Instagram, you guys got to jump over to Instagram. I am live with Maddie on Instagram. I figured we could have some fun and maybe help answer some questions or help anybody out there struggling. 1 week clean, congratulations. I've almost hit 4 months clean. Hey. Here.
We're live.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, you know your hat matches my tattoo exactly.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Why did you get your tattoo?
Because when I was a kid, there was arrow under, and there was this quote that I always loved that was life's like an arrow. It'll pull you back, but it'll shoot you forward. And I was just drawn one day, and I was like, that's the tattoo I want. So that's how I got it.
Oh, that's awesome. A lot of people don't realize the whole semicolon. I mean, that's kind of what got me a little bit motivated in this and making a difference was Project Semicolon. And I remember when it became a really big thing. I remember seeing about it on MTV. I remember seeing about it on Good Morning America. I remember when the movement on it was really, really strong. And then I never understood why it kind of went away. And then I found out and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I can still hear you.
Okay. I remember in high school, it was when I was in high school is when it first became big, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. But I get questioned all the time, what does it mean? I mean, my parents didn't know what it means. That was a whole explanation.
A whole explaining of, hey, this is what the semicolon means.
And I think it's cool to tell kids because when they do it or when they see the connection between, they start drawing semicolons everywhere and they start realizing hey, that's what this means.
It is, and the coolest thing I always liked about the semicolon is that we're not ever given a sign or anything to say, hey, this is what I struggle with mental illness. Hey, guess what? I struggle with mental illness. We don't get anything like that. But if you see somebody with a semicolon, you instantly know, okay, it has something to do with mental health. And it's so much easier to strike up a conversation, actually talk to somebody and be able to relate to them on that level.
Well, and I meet people all the time, and I see the semicolon, I'm look, we match.
I do the same thing too, and it's funny because I notice everybody, they'll either have them right here behind the ears, they'll have them on their hands, or it's usually on the wrist.
When I was a kid, self-harming wasn't really something I did, but I was able to find other ways. But what really prevented me from doing it is I would take a Sharpie and write a warrior on my wrist, or I would semicolon on my finger. And when I wanted to get it on the finger, they said no. But honestly, that is what got me through. I would just look at my wrist when I was really struggling and be like, I can't. Sharpie.
Oh, that's awesome. What is your YouTube channel?
Mental Mental Health Miss Maddie.
All right. So for you guys on YouTube, I want you to go check out Mental Health Miss Maddie. I am live with her on Instagram. I love you guys. I am paying attention to you on YouTube. As you notice, if you've ever been to my lives, I can multi-live.
The whole Discord platform you introduced me to,
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Like, that literally changed. I stayed up all night last night, and I ran through like I do a hospital.
Right.
Like, I said, okay, everyone, stop talking. We're gonna do this, and we did literally an hour worth of groups like we do at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone participated. You could see it better. Went amazing.
The Discord is one of the most powerful tools out there. And it's one of those that it helps a community bond together. It helps people who are struggling bond together, just because it's nice to know that we aren't alone, and it's awesome to know that, hey, people do actually like relate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same I found when it came to like addiction. Like, addicts understand addicts, and like have you ever struggled with addiction?
Yeah. I mean, in two separate ways. One, not knowing, and one knowing. So, like, not like alcohol or anything related, but more of like emotionally, like in high school and my whole life I've done ADHD medicine.
Okay.
So the minute I got to college, I played sports, and Adderall in college athletics is completely frowned upon. So I was taken off of it, and in my head, I was so addicted my whole life to the feeling that it gave me that I function. I tried to outsource everywhere and couldn't get it. And they actually have a group where if you have been on those kind of stimulants your whole life, they bring you help and like get over it and like work. So like, I did. I had to go to like a little group that was like, look, you feel like you can't pass this test, but this is how you do it. Like, they kind of bring me into it.
That's really interesting. See, I have never heard of that. I have never ever actually heard of that, because because I don't know how I can't function without Adderall. Without Adderall, it's hard as hell.
But here's the thing. Did I need to be put on it? Probably not. But I was put on it in 5th or 6th grade. They started me on full blood. So by the time I was in college, my body was pretty fit. It was like in the mornings, I wasn't hyper. You felt from, it was the part of me having to like mentally prepare myself that I struggled with.
Okay, no, it makes sense. The so you kind of know what like the withdrawals in, or how it makes you feel, because that's I find it's a lot of the same when it comes to mental health. It's like you get a lot of people that don't understand mental health because they've never really struggled before, and not everyone does struggle. It's 1 in 4 struggle with a mental illness. And I think some people try to relate, or maybe try too hard to relate. But if you truly have something that you're struggling with, it's so much easier to go, okay, maybe you're diagnosed with this and I'm diagnosed with this, but we understand kind of how it is up here, versus how it is with everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. And just like how you cope in like, because I know I've watched my best friends go through addiction with like smoking, where they have to stop, and just how you have to be, you have to go the extra mile, because they need the constant like re-encouragement, like, hey, it's better for you, you're doing so well, because how much they're addicted to the nicotine and stuff.
Right. Cash over 1K.
I have a scrub top, so I have a scrub top hanging on the wall, and everyone's making fun of it. When I got accepted in school, I went out and bought a scrub top and hung it up for some stupid reason, but it's always gone house to house hanging up, so.
That is awesome.
What would you encourage if so I've been pushing a lot of my adults to your Discord. How would you explain the difference between the adult chat and group chats? What's the biggest thing I'm being asked?
The biggest thing is where an adult is in life versus where a teen is in life. The reason I actually split the chats, the Discord got up to about, I want to say it was about 2,000 or 3,000 members, and we decided to split the Discord. And the main reason we did is everybody, we all have our own different stressors in life. You know, as a college student, it's your exams, it's your parents, your first time really out there struggling with mental illness, kind of on your own. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to tell my parents because I'm at college. Is it the stress from college? What is it? As a teen, you're more at home. I don't want to talk to my parents about it. Maybe I'll talk to a teacher, versus as you're an adult, like, okay, I have to be an adult and pay my bills and work and all this, and I'm struggling. And I had a ENT that I was talking to, and he was telling me how he had a really hard night, a really bad night. He's like, he was texting me, and he's like, I just got done with a call. The person ended up passing away on us. There was a lot of blood. It's triggered my PTSD. I'm really struggling. I just need somebody to talk to. And I go, great, I have this community. Let me get you into the community. Let me get you some support, other people to talk to. And I went in there, and it was nothing bad, but the teens were in there talking about how they hate their homework and how they're stressed out about like their homework. And I'm going, okay, I got a guy right now that literally saw somebody pass away in front of him, going to go into a chat where people are stressed out because of homework. Both are equal. I mean, it's not like one's worse than the other in a lot of senses, but it's relating on that different factor. You know, try. I mean, I'm lucky. I shouldn't say I'm lucky. I don't have kids, so I think I can relate to kids in that sense. But a lot of times, if you're a teen and you're trying to vent your problems out and you're talking to an adult, especially if they have kids, it's almost like that parenting role comes out instead of that listening role.
Yeah. You don't know what you're doing. You don't, like I told you last night, I moved as far away from Kansas City as I could to a place where I thought I could just pick up and start over. And like, honestly, had I had a support group like that coming out of like college, I don't think I would have like crashed as far as I did. But
okay, when do you hear me on? Do you hear me here, or do you hear me here? I can't hear you on this one, so I have you on this one, but it's delayed. 1 second, I'll be back. We are.
It's harder than you think.
Ah, there we are. There we are. There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, Verizon, don't let me down. It's only because of those commercials that I went with you. Now, here's the thing that's funny is, see, I have two different phones. I have two iPhones, and the reason I do, I never got rid of one of them because I get so many texts that usually I can't use my personal cell phone because people start calling me during lives, and I'm like, so I'm hoping that nobody calls me during the live.
It's all good.
All right, so I missed all of that, unfortunately.
Okay, so I said like something that people don't give themselves enough credit for is like where you have to be mentally after you graduate college. Like you go into a new atmosphere, you've gone to school your whole life. So it's kind of like, that's where I crumbled. And that's where had I had like a resource like you have now, I think that would have done me wonders. Because you start off and you don't know what you're doing.
You don't, and that's the hard thing about even college. Like I don't have a college degree. I'm literally the redheaded stepchild of my family. My brother graduated college. He owns a business. My dad was a doctor. My like the whole like zinc side of my family was all very high level of education. My grandfather on that side was a pastor. So like I was like really looked down upon by my family that, hey, you don't have a degree. And I was like, I was smart. I mean, I got scholarships and stuff, but I didn't like school. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, why am I going to go to school and get a degree in something that I don't know if I want to do it or not?
That's exactly what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school. I graduated high school with college classes. So at 19, I started my degree, and then look at me, I'm back in it for something completely different.
Mm-hmm. And that's the funny thing is I tell a lot of people that just follow your passions. You know, you have your passions. Like if I would have told my parents when I was growing up, hey, I want to be a mental health advocate, I didn't really want to at that period of time. But even when I've started to, you know, even talking with my mom now, I'm almost 40 years old. I'm 39. And so she's like, really, you're going to do something else? I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do now. She's like, oh, okay. Because they're kind of used to it because I never had a degree necessarily. And I was always very good in sales, and that's all I did. So she's used to it, but I feel bad for a lot of the people out there that are in their 20s or even late 30s or even as a teenager. Like, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And then it's like kind of that hopelessness sets in. And then that like, what am I supposed to do shit sets in.
Yeah. What is your, so this is opinion I need. What is your take on mental health resources for college students?
Horrible. Depending on the college, and the college that needs them the most, I believe, are community colleges, and they have the worst. Those are the ones that I actually think need it the most because I don't, whether you go to Johns Hopkins or you go to whatever community college, you're going to get an education. You can both make the same money. I mean, it has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that if you go to a university itself, you do have access to some of the mental health resources, yet they don't speak about them. Most college students don't know about them, but they are there. Where a community college with somebody who's really actually struggling, maybe staying at home, not sure what they want to do, who could really use the resources, community colleges don't have any.
Yeah, I didn't know I had any resources at my college.
Mm-hmm. Most people don't. Most people don't realize that. And the way that a lot of the universities have these resources available to them it's kind of the student hands-on tutoring in a sense program. So if I'm going to school, I'm going for a psychology degree or I'm going for anything in like social services and so forth, they'll have those work study programs where I can be a counselor at the college, which is great, but also too, I'm not a therapist at that moment. So I probably don't even know the resources that are available to somebody out there.
Right.
And that's one of the hardest parts, especially because when you are struggling, you're thinking emotionally and not logic. And if you have somebody that doesn't know the resources, then it's even worse. It's kind of like, okay, we're going to sit and talk. Hi.
Yeah. I remember being in college, and the way I found my therapist was a friend of a friend. I made like some Facebook post, and it was like, I'm really struggling. Like, I just wish I had someone to talk to. And someone was like, hey, I have a therapist that's great for you. And that's how I found her. Or like, cause as a college student, or just as a person in general, I think with the stigma and how everything's handled, it's really hard to tell yourself, okay, I need to ask for help.
It is, especially in school, because in the college thing, I get a ton of college students that reach out, and it's hard because you're at that crossroads where you still have school, but you have yet adult responsibilities, and it makes it that much more of a struggle of going, okay, is this all in my head? It's almost like your negative self-talk is stronger in college than it is any other time, because it's like you're trying to justify, maybe this is my growing pains, or maybe this is that, or maybe this is what I'm going through and it's just going to get better. I don't know. That's actually one of the things, like, I feel horrible for a lot of kids that are in college just with the lack of resources.
Everyone's saying I am echoing and they can't hear me.
I can hear you now. You were echoing for a minute. But
I'm still echoing? Because I can hear myself.
You're not echoing on my end.
Okay. stopped. Okay.
So how do you tell teens to reach out to their parents if they're struggling? I'm really curious on this because you work with teens.
It's hard for me when a kid comes to me and they're like, hey, my parents don't understand mental health. Like, how do I tell them, yeah, they can't hear me again. Shoot. I don't know why it's still ongoing, guys.
Are you Bluetooth to your ear pods?
No, I turned them off because I thought that was doing it. It's like I can hear myself.
That's weird.
Yeah.
There's a ghost in the machine.
There is. That usually only happens if someone's like in here. Oh my gosh. Mine are behind us. I don't know, guys. I'm gonna try turn it down a little bit. But when a kid, the hardest thing for me is when a kid says, my parents won't get me help, or when they're like, my parents don't understand. And the hardest thing for me to tell them is, then you need to not tell them. You need to go possibly to a teacher you trust, a school counselor, another family relative or someone. Because the kids that come into our hospital all the time, they're like, my parents think it's attention seeking, or my parents think it's fake, and I'm part of the drama. And I go, well, do you have a favorite teacher? Because I'm not going to lie, in high school, I ate lunch with my teachers every day. And I did tell a teacher. So maybe research your favorite teacher and be like, hey, I need resources and I need help, and my parents won't help me. This is how I'm feeling. I mean, that's what counselors are there for. High school counselors are there to listen. And if you are starting to feel that way, I tell them, I said, teacher, in my opinion, I always prefer kids to go teacher, then counselor, if they're not going to talk to their parents, because a teacher can be like, okay, well, you need to talk to this, or maybe give them advice if they've met their parents. Then if teacher says go see a counselor, maybe go see the school counselor then, because 9 out of 10 times, teachers are mandated reporters and so are counselors. So even if you tell a teacher, they have to report. So, either way, it's going to get them the help they need.
And that's the hard thing when it comes to teachers. I think a lot of kids are afraid of things being reported. I think a lot of it also, though, is actually fear-based more than anything, because it's that unknown. Like, what are they going to do to me? Like, the same reason why a lot of people are afraid to go to a therapist, because, well, what if they send me to the mental hospital?
Someone just said in mine that the teacher told the school counselor and they told their parents, but that's the point. Like, a part of, like, even when it comes to physical aggression or abuse, like, the teachers have to report it no matter what. And I tell kids to go to teachers first because you're most likely more comfortable with a teacher than your counselor, because you see your teacher every day.
Mm-hmm.
Might scared or hold something back, but a teacher knows you well enough after a few days of class that you're lying, like something's not okay, or like, and they can get it out of you. But for those who are right now saying that you told the teacher and they had to report it, it's because it's for your best interest and they have to.
And they do, and it's usually, as much as you might hate. I've always told kids this: as much as you might hate the fact that they report it, majority of the time, them reporting it and telling your parents actually turns into a good thing, because even now as an adult, I still have conversations in my head. I literally have conversations in my head where I'm like, nope, you're not going to understand. Like, in my head, I have it full ingrained that someone's not going to understand. Never brought it up to them, but they're not going to understand it. I know it. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, they do understand that communication starts, and you're like, oh, wow, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and some kids don't understand that, like, and your parents, I'm sure, are classified as its age range where mental health wasn't as prevalent then as it is now. And kids and the generations in middle school and high school right now, they're more mental health conscious. Like, they're starting to understand more. Like, I feel like my mom, when she was in high school or like my age, mental health wasn't as big of a thing. It was, move on, you're fine. Here, our generation's like, no, tell me how you're feeling and why you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to tell them too, like, if your parents don't understand, it's the same thing with LGBT. Like, they may not understand it because it wasn't a big thing when they were our age. So give them time and address it to them slowly if that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm. And it is one of those where it's like a lot of the comments that I see are like, my parents don't understand, and it's like, well, what kind of conversation also have you had with your parents? Because what I also have noticed, and even as a kid, the strongest thing I ever learned was how you communicate and communication in general. And I don't know if you run into this, but somebody just says, well, I'm depressed. I'm depressed. I need help. What are you going to do to help me? Will you help me?
The biggest thing that drives me nuts is when kids are like, Mom, Dad, and we read admit notes all the time, and it'll say this. It'll say, client told parents they were depressed. The parent's response was, why? You have a nice house and clothes. And it's like, no. Like that has nothing to pertain with what is going on.
Mm-hmm. And that's where it's hard with a kid, and that's why, like, I'll even tell the kids and teens and stuff, and even some of the adults, because the same thing happens with spouses too. Of instead of just saying that you're depressed, try and explain it to the best of your ability. Because like there are different. I'm diagnosed with MDD, which is major depressive disorder. There's also manic depressive disorder. There's different depression disorders out there, and each of them make you feel a little bit different. And explain to them how it hits, because you're right. A lot of people will be like, well, you should be really grateful. You have a great job. You have a loving spouse. You have a wonderful house. You have a great family. You have everything.
Well, you have to be depressed now.
Exactly. And they don't realize that, well, this is how my brain feels.
Right. And what I pound into my TikToks and my kids is that depression is a chemical imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
The medicine isn't to change who you are. It's to change the chemicals to be back up, to see where they're at in the level. And that's my thing.
And that's the hardest thing.
Understanding it's not choice.
Right. And depression isn't sadness. Depression is different than sadness. Depression is different than heartbreak. They might mirror each other. It might seep into depression maybe, but there's also dopamine receptors in your brain that if your dopamine receptors aren't working and firing off correctly, serotonin is another chemical in your brain. And like Wellbutrin, for example, or SSRIs, which is like Zoloft and Prozac and all that. I mean, there's serotonin to adjust the chemicals.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. That's my thing. I tell people all the time, if someone makes the comment to you, why, you have everything, you shouldn't be depressed. They don't understand what depression is, and you need to just put yourself in a different situation, because you're trying to fight them on giving them reasons. They're just going to try to justify why you shouldn't have it.
Yep. And they do it. But if you follow me on TikTok, I won't be depressed.
Do what?
I was making fun. I said, if you follow me on TikTok, I won't be depressed.
Yeah, they are. Well, and two, do you ever find within your chats, and this is a good topic, comparing traumas, that kids in our hospital will stop, you're fine. This only happened to me, this and this happened to me. Or they'll be like, oh, I had this happen to me, well, this happened to me today. So how do you handle, or how do you tell kids to stop comparing trauma?
That it's one, I go more into the route of it's not a competition. And I know people that have taken their lives based on one trauma, not 1,000 traumas. So it doesn't matter. And I think that's human nature in a sense, to be competitive, to try and always sometimes one up the other person. And that's not what it is. I think the greatest one I think out there that fascinates me the most is ADHD, which I'm diagnosed with, because it's one of those where people don't realize that, yeah, people with ADHD commit suicide. Well, that just means you have a bunch of energy. No, that's not what it actually is. And it starts to break it all down. Well, I have, and I run into this, and this actually hits even later on in life with adults. Well, I'm diagnosed with bipolar. Well, you're only got, PTSD. Mine's worse than yours, and no, there is no competition.
Right. Like, everyone's traumas are validated.
Mm-hmm.
They're just different. Yeah, the other thing with, like, under the whole mental illness that I personally, it actually bugs me, is when kids try to pull the whole, well, you know, I did this growing up, and you can, I don't know if you've seen it, but in chat sometimes they're like, hey, I did this and now I'm cured. And it's like, okay, what happens and works for you is not going to be what happens and works best for this person. So stop telling them if they do it, it's gone.
Well, how do you handle this one? Because I get this one from the teens the most, and I've even had to get to the point that I've done TikToks on this. Have you gotten messages where it is, how did you cure your depression?
Yeah.
What do you tell somebody when they ask you that?
So I tell them, it's so funny because I actually had someone email me about that, and I just wrote an email. So I tell them this. I said, I had to wake up one morning and say, I have to rely on myself. And I can tell you the exact day it was where I woke up and I was like, today's the day I get help. You know, it's enough of me trying to hide it. It's enough of me trying to, you know, mask and pretend that I'm fine. You know what? If my parents find out, they find out. And that day I called a therapist, and I went, and I remember I went to Target and I bought $50 worth, it could be whatever amount, but $50 worth of self-care products. And I was like, you know what? I can't technically, in my opinion, I don't think you can cure it forever, but you can, you know, make it livable and find coping skills. And that's the day I was like, I watched YouTube videos on how to cope. I made a therapist appointment. I got hair masks. And I remember going to bed that night going, tomorrow's the day that I change. Tomorrow it's not going to be cured, but I'm going to make myself the best I can, and I'm going to reach out and get help. And then I remember after going to the therapist and getting a ton of, she gave me like 4 worksheets, a thing of coping skills, different ways to, like, when I'm at crisis, like what to do. And I just remember being like, I may have this the rest of my life, but I'm going to do the best I can to make myself live the best life I can. And that's what I tell them. I tell them that story, and I say, look, you're not going to cure it overnight. You're not going to find a pill. If you take a Lexapro, it's not going to cure it overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to work on things. And at some point, you have to realize the only person that, you know, can control your happiness at the end of the day is you. So if you need help, you need to get it. Because you and I, we can tell kids to go get help all day. We can tell their parents. We can tell the adults.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they have to say, hey, today's the day. Right. And that's what I tell them.
And I totally agree with you on that, because and I think that's where social media is so damaging when it comes to it, because, and I've experienced this even myself, and when I share, it's not even to share. Like, I wish that people understood that, no, I have a very strong support group. Like, when I'm struggling, I start reaching out for help right away, and I literally have a sequence of people I go to of, if I can't get a hold of them, this is next, this is next, this is next, until I finally get the right help that I need, everything. And you get onto social media and you'll see, you know, the person's life looks phenomenal and great. And everybody's life looks phenomenal and great, and my life sucks, but everyone else's life is so much better than mine. Or you go on and you'll see somebody who finally does share, and then then people will try and call them out for attention, and you're attention seeking. And sometimes, I don't know if you've ever shared like your depressive episodes at all, or a challenge that you went through, where then all of a sudden everybody's going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And it's almost that reverse, like, "No, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. I wanted to share with you how it is."
Yeah, and my big thing I tell kids is you have to know when you're starting to split. Like, you have to be really conscious about when you start self-isolating, when you start not finding enjoyment in things, when you start sleeping more than normal and not eating, like, that needs to be in the back of your head being like, oh gosh, did I, you know, what's going on? Like, maybe I need to make an extra therapy appointment. Maybe, you know, I love telling kids. So I want to tell you my best coping skill I give to them is I tell them, because this is what saved me, literally saved my life. I made a fake email account called Dear Miss Maddie's Diary. I had a couple numbers, I'm not going to share it. Every time I was in crisis or about to be in crisis or had the worst day of my life, I took it out on my keyboard. And instead of doing anything to my body, instead of punching a wall, I just exploded on my keyboard and typed it out, pressed send, deleted the sent email, and it was gone. And it was like, I wasn't able to get to a therapist, but I released whatever was on my mind, and it's gone. And then that, I call it an email burn book, because we encourage journaling to get feelings out, but I don't like journals because it's there. It's right in front of you. You can go back and read through your traumas, but if you do it online, it's gone. I mean, you can send it, delete your sent, and you're not going to see it again if it's in a separate email.
And I actually really like that idea. I like that idea because it is very. I'm amongst the same belief as you. Of you have to vent it out. You have to share it out, and just get that raw emotions out. And the problem is when you do it to a lot of people, they start trying to, especially friends and family, they'll try and fix you. And well, this is what. Have you tried this? Have you? No, I don't want to try anything. I want to tell you what I'm going through, and that's it.
Yeah. Or their responses again.
I like the email. I like that idea. That is actually a really good idea.
And you know what? Kids ask me, they're like, well, how long do you have to do it? And I go, I made that email in 2012. I don't write every day, but to this day, if I have a bad day, I'll write an email because I know it's there and I don't have to see it ever again. So there's like no end or like final date to anything. It's just how long you need it.
Right. So let me ask you this, because it's funny, because I'm watching my YouTube chat a little bit. So you're a mental health advocate. Have you gotten any kind of hate being a mental health advocate?
Do what?
Have you gotten any kind of hate being a mental health advocate? What have you ran into? Even though I don't know you very well, I know this, that I've talked to you enough that you want to make a difference. You don't know, just like I don't, what we're doing. All we know is in our heart, we want to help people any way we can.
Yeah. No, okay, so the biggest hate I get are on my POVs where they're saying, you just do this for attention. And I'm like, no. If that's what you think, and then I delete it because I create a space that's safe. And on my space, no one's going to bully me or someone else. And so if you put a hate comment, it does get deleted. And I'll fess up to it. Yeah, I deleted your comment because that's not the zone that I'm wanting to create. And so, but also I get these emails that are like, mental health's a joke, you know, or someone else will say, well, my parents said that I can't watch your YouTubes anymore because it's putting ideas into my head. And I'm like, okay, I'm bringing them in. The biggest thing is people think mental health is just something people are trying to get attention from. And it's hard to answer the hate when they bring it. And it's like, no, look, if that's how you feel, then go on someone else's page. You don't have to watch mine. But those who are here for a reason. And when I created this group chat, that's why I did it. And I think it's so funny you had one too, because I didn't even know that. Like, Grapevine Single, it's like, you guys are all here for a reason. You didn't come to my page because it was comedy. So, like, let's get on the same page here. And then you get the one that's like, well, this is all just for attention. And so that's my biggest thing. I think the biggest hate I receive is people saying, it's me helping the attention seekers find different ways to do it. And
that's interesting. See, I've never gotten that one, but that one makes sense because people don't realize, like, the strongest thing I think anybody could ever do, whether you agree in mental illness, mental health, any of that, if you agree or not, if you see something you don't agree with, you just continue forward.
Move on. And I know we talked about the other day, it's even with cyberbullying. I don't care. I'm calling them out now. Like, you're not gonna do it. Like, there's so much negativity in this world. Why continue?
Right. And I think that's to truly erase the stigma around mental illnesses is where I think anybody who struggles, even if you don't agree with somebody else who's bringing awareness, and say you're trying to bring awareness and you even see somebody else that's bringing awareness, but you don't agree with it, the most powerful thing you can do, even as a mental health advocate, is still support that person. To still say, you know what, I don't necessarily agree with what you're doing, but you're not hurting anyone. You're doing your best. You're trying really hard. So do you.
Yeah, no. So what is your take on this? So when I pull up TikTok every day, I see about 15 of them making fun of suicide, or they're replaying the audio of 13 Reasons Why.
I haven't seen those actually.
Well, the big one right now that's going around is the kids are taking their window screens out, and then the audio says, if you have the gut to tell someone through a screen, you are an achiever. and they put a screen here, and they say, go yourself, and then they turn this way, and they go, achievement, winner. And I'm like, those are the ones I've been reporting. I have people take them down, but to me, and then they'll put, oh, well, I was just joking. And I'm like, this is why kids won't get help.
No, because like if I saw one of those, like now you got me like, I'm going to be on TikTok hunting them down because I will duet those and be like, are you fucking kidding me?
So I had my little group of kids the other day. I put them to the text and turn the audio off and record it as many times as you can. And then I duetted it. And I was just like, what is it? This is not okay. And I don't know why it's still on.
And it's one of those things that's kind of sad because I look at people that are going through that and that post stuff like that, and in a big way for them, I pity them and I feel for them, and I truly do, because I hope that they never experience something like that in their life. And the worst thing that anyone can ever about that, and the most damaging effect is nobody realizes hindsight's 20/20. When somebody leaves your life, like with my dad or with my wife, you literally can replay every joke, everything you ever said in your head that was in the past, that it remotely could relate to what just happened. And I really hope that anybody who makes fun of it never experiences it, because something like that will literally be in their soul and eat at them for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Of going, man, this was something I was really, why didn't they reach out to me? Why didn't they tell me they needed help? I don't know. Maybe they saw you on social media making fun of it.
Yeah. Or, okay, so you work at an institution. What about the kids who come back telling their stories and think it's funny? I don't know if you see a lot of that, and I think it's because before I started doing this, I went on YouTube and I wanted to see like how kids reacted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kids who don't need to be there are making these videos, and it's like I went to the psych hospital and we just watched TV the whole time, and kids fought, and kids are trying to just do stuff for attention, and they're talking about the wrong side of it.
I think that's what adds a lot to how a psych hospital is. Just even like with me, where I work is actually hard for me to explain because I don't want to give the wrong perception of it, because essentially where I work is a dual diagnosis. So it's mental health and addiction. Now, to get in there, for example, I've been in there before where I had somebody who was diagnosed with BPD, but they're also a meth addict, diagnosed with OCD, general anxiety disorder, also recovering alcoholic. So I've had them where they've been addicts with mental health. But like the group that I have now, it's an 8-bed place, and none of them have addiction. None of them are there for addiction. So it's like, it's dual diagnosis, but it's also, you can be strictly mental health or strictly, partially with addiction, but mental health has to be in there somewhere. And with these guys that I've noticed there, like the ones that get to actually this place are like, I have been begging to get in here. Like, this is what I've needed. And I think it's because it's a lot more intense. It's 30 days nonstop, group, nonstop therapy, on-site therapist, where the worst is that sets off the stigma of the trial and error, I think, for a lot of people, is like you just said, on YouTube, let me share what my psych experience is. Or there's a video that actually irritated me, and I don't share stuff that irritates me very often because it's like, I just don't. But they had what it's like sleeping at a psych hospital. It was on TikTok, and she was like sleeping then all of a sudden the flashlight or whatever in your face, and like what or whatever, and then it was really dumb. But I'm like, why would you share that? Like, why? Like, you're giving people the wrong impression of what it is, and every hospital and every institution you go to is different. And the worst thing that you can ever do is make somebody afraid of it, and then they install this fear where everybody's afraid to go to a mental health hospital. I can tell you right now, if I had the opportunity even right now, and I'm perfectly fine, somebody says, hey, we can actually take care of all your bills and stuff right now, and we'll put you in this hospital for 30 days. Do you want to go and just, have a checkup from the neck up? I'd be like, yep, I'm in.
Right.
I'm down.
And see, that's what our with social media, they're like, oh, that on TikTok, they made it seem like all people do is like sit here and watch TV, or like on TikTok, the girls go, this is like, no, this is not TikTok. You are actually in a psych hospital. Like, this is how it goes.
Right. Now, here's an interesting one. What do you, what is your thing in, what is your response to, okay, if your family is very negative? So I have a comment here in the YouTube chat. It says, how do I get help when I need my parents to, and they won't do anything and they just ignore me now? You know how you like, I run into this a lot, and I probably am twisting their message even, but say somebody's talked to their parents about self-harm or about depression, and say they got help, but now it's getting bad again. How do you tell them to go back and tell their parents again now that it's getting bad? Because I run into a lot of times they feel like maybe they failed, or they're afraid to tell their parents because maybe they're going to think I'm only doing it for attention this time, or what?
So I tell them this. Your parents' responsibility as an adult and as a parent is to love you unconditionally because you are theirs. And everyone has setbacks and everyone has mistakes. And, you know, you might disappoint them to a level that it's like, you know, so-and-so, I thought we went over coping skills. You were supposed to tell me. Why did you tell me? Why did you let it get this bad? But kids mistake that for them getting on to them. And it's like, no, that's them caring. But then there's the other side that won't. But when they're holding you up to expectations because they put you out of the level now where you have gone better, and the expectation for you was, hey, when you start slipping, please let me know. And if you've gone too far, they're probably going to show with slight disappointment, but it's not because they're mad at you for doing it. They're more upset because you haven't reached out. So that's what I tell them is to just see. But if you're scared of your parents, I always tell kids, you know, you have a phone, neighbors, just be like, hey, can I just talk to you? Because sometimes even, I know if I was my neighbor and I was like, hey, I'm having some really bad thoughts, how should I tell Grace? I know he would be like, well, here's how I would do it. Or he would give me some really decent advice.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I tell kids, if your parents are straight up bullying you over it, if they're ignoring it, if you're in your room somewhere and you've told them multiple times that you're doing it and you need help, and they're like, no, we got it, you're fine, like this is, call a crisis line.
Mm-hmm.
That crisis line can help, or you call a friend, or you call a parent, a coach, anyone. Because at that point, you have reached out, and when you go back to that hospital, you go back to the therapist, the person's out of your mouth. I went to my parents, and then I had to go around.
Mm-hmm. And see, I agree with that. That's the thing that it's amazing whenever I do these, because I know that you have to get them the same as like, how do I talk to my parents, or how do I tell my parents, or how do I tell my parents? I've always even told people, if you're afraid, the one thing that helped me, like I was lucky. My parents were really open about mental health, very supportive about it. But I always had a like failure complex issue when it came to it in a lot of ways.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And so to let them know when I was struggling, I would actually write my parents letters. And it was because back then, of course, I didn't have a cell phone or anything like that. I guess I'm a boomer in a way. But if you write somebody and you actually stopped and wrote somebody a letter versus a text or an email or anything like that, it was like you literally stopped your day to sit there and handwrite. Like this is, it's taken a little bit differently versus.
I feel like too with that, it's a little more thought out, because with the text, you can viciously just, with writing, you can be like, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's one of those that I think every kid, especially if I was a parent, I think that I want to be at least given a chance as a parent to be a parent for my kid, to help them. And it breaks my heart sometimes when I see kids that will make the decision for the parents, that I can't talk to them. And I get it. I think a lot of it's fear driven. I don't know what you think.
I think sometimes I'm 50-50 when I know we're playing on high school, and I will be that kid's best friend. But for me, I want to be. It's more important to find a balance between best friend and like dictatorship. And that's what I tell kids is like, you have to understand, your parents might be coming down super dictator strong. You're still their kid. And so there's not often a time a kid will do it and a parent is, you know, like, whatever. No, they love you. Sometimes they just don't know how to show it, or they're scared for you and they don't know. Because, I mean, I know if I went to my parents today and was like, let's say I'm 16, I went, Mom, Dad, this is how I'm feeling, they would be upset. But they'd be upset out of like, well, how do we help you? They'd be there with their boats trying to be like, I've never experienced this. I don't know how to help. I don't know what to do. I don't know. It would be that kind of like processing stuff.
And I agree. I really strongly agree on that. But it's that's why I think it's awesome that you know, kids do have the ability to interact and find people out there that want to make that difference. I always get fascinated in the chats. So this is something I run into all the time. When it comes down to different things, how much of mental illness and mental health and different things that happen, how much of it do you think is for attention-seeking purposes versus actual purpose or actual struggle?
I have not a very popular on that. So we're trained at the hospital to find superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Find it. So I do have a harder standpoint. When it came, I have to get to know it. You can tell who's struggling and who's doing it for attention. We're trained to see what's superficial, what's real. But for me, it's really hard to tell. But when a kid is making threats online, to me, it's more of a crime of help. And occasionally I'll send them a message and just be like, what's going on? And if they're making more threats, I'm like, well, here's the line, but is there something more? Like, I try to teach kids good attention versus bad attention, you know? And I made a TikTok not that long ago, and I go, if you're needing attention, TikTok me, Miss Maddie, I'm not getting enough attention at home. Can I have some good attention? And I tell them, I would rather you blatantly ask me for 30 minutes of my attention than you to start posting or doing something negative for attention and be labeled as a attention seeker. So blatantly just tell me, Maddie, look, I'm not getting any of your attention. It's pissing me off. Like, can you just focus on me for 10 minutes? And I tell them, I'm going to give it to you because good attention versus bad.
And see, so your opinion is almost identical with mine. That's where because the hardest thing for me, and I used to take it actually really, really personal. And I took it personal for a long time when people would say, "Oh, I'm suicidal. I'm gonna commit suicide. If you're not there, this is obviously a sign. I'm gonna take my life." I am that person that literally will be like, "Dude, just stop.
Yeah.
You're the one that creates it where others don't speak up. And I understand that you want attention, but what kind of attention do you want? What kind of friendship do you want? What kind of connection do you want? And let's do that."
And especially if the only time they reach out to you is when they're making those threats, that to me is a big sign. It's like, so I answered you once, and now that's the only way you think you can get my attention. But I also tell kids, stop making it a thing where the only way you can get my attention is by threatening. Because at the end of the day, someone who's a silent person acting on doing isn't going to make blanket threats towards the public on my live to have everyone check on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, DM me. Hey, I'm really struggling, but I need good attention. This will prevent me from doing this, this, and this. Okay, you're on it. You know what? You get an email. Like, I'm going to answer you back.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the kid that's on both of our lives going, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, no, stop.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I think that the hardest thing that they don't to help even kids, and later on even as adults, we don't know how to communicate the best. That there is nothing wrong with just saying, "Hey, I need some positive attention right now," or "I just need somebody to vent to right now." And that's the thing that I don't know where you work. So part of the reason the rehab brought me in was boundaries. But let me ask you this. What kind of boundary teaching does the hospital that you work for teach?
I never boundaries because I have been diagnosed with OCD, and part of it is with me, I don't have to be in situations I can't control.
So if a kid runs up and hugs me tight and I can't get out, that immediately just gets me. And so when I walk in every morning, I sit down and go, it's part of our daily groups, and I go, boundaries and expectations, let's go. They know it's space. Everyone needs space. You don't know what trauma they have been. Someone standing right behind them could be a huge trigger because maybe something happened. So give them space. Or even just asking personal information. We need boundaries on that because, we don't want them sharing their reasons why, because that starts a massive domino effect. We don't want them, calling last name. I don't hold in my personal life because there's a boundary there where they're going to use it against me when they're mad. Mm-hmm. So we as individuals, they're more so than the agenda of the hospital, we set the boundaries. They want to call their therapist 10 times. No, expectation is, the boundary is you call once between 1 and 4 and the medical manager, but that's it. Boundaries. If you start getting used to calling someone every hour, and I actually had to go do that with a kid the other day. I had a kid who was messaging me 24/7 on all my platforms, found my personal Facebook, found my personal Snapchat, found my personal work email somehow, and was constantly blowing up. I said, look, I assume you're a great kid, right? I said, here's my email. If you want to contact me once a week, and I will respond once a week. But we have to keep a professional boundary here where you have to realize, I'm not your therapist. Once per week. There's math going on everything. So I think it's more reset them as individuals at the hospital than everyone coming together and doing it as a group.
Right.
That makes sense.
No, and it does make sense.
Our hospital focuses more on two things: aggression and self-harm. That's just what we get the most aggressive kids. So that's where we're at.
Okay. So that makes sense because with a lot of them, I don't think a lot of people even because you did bring it up. I don't think a lot of people understand what boundaries are. And that's the thing that I don't like with some of the therapists that they'll do. They'll be like, oh, well, you need to get healthy boundaries. Okay, well, what is that? And you're not taught, what a healthy boundary is. I mean, you need boundaries in life almost with everybody when it comes to parents, when it comes to friends, when it comes to even spouses, that I don't think people realize that, the more boundaries that you have set up and the more that you communicated. Oh, where did she go? I lost her, I think.
Oh my God.
Oh, I did lose her.
No, you're not. Oh my God, wait, please don't leave. Oh my God, can I please take a photo? Oh my God.
We lost her. We lost her. You're safe. Good. I am glad. I'm going to stick right here for a minute. I'll see if I can bring her back up. I actually really enjoy talking to Maddie here. She is
Picture. Ready? Okay. Oh my God.
Nah, she doesn't trust me. Who doesn't trust you?
So yeah, you can take the video now. Hi, Emerson. I love you very much and I appreciate you very much and thank you.
I don't know what I'm. Oh, I have the volume on my TikTok. That's why I'm not. I don't. Oh, there she is. She so do you do not get paid on TikTok? No, you don't get paid on TikTok.
Again.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That is amazing. I'll flip flop even with you. It's the saddest thing is when you do talk about stuff like that, and when it comes to mental health, I've found you get reported by two different people. One, you get reported by the haters, which is the thing that just blows my mind. Is it's like I've always found that because I just ran through an experience with this with haters in my community that will do the whole he doesn't care, all this stuff. And even as much as I share with people and I will do screenshots of how many texts I get and all of that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I do this all for attention, for the money, because TikTok pays me all these millions of dollars.
Right. Okay, so like I said, we get very aggressive kids there. So do you get questions all the time on like how to help aggression towards mental illness?
I actually don't get that very much. I mean, I'll get people who will reach out where they're like, and it's very common with ADHD. You'll get aggressive, or there's an anger challenge, or they don't know how to control their temper. But it's more derived from it's their temper and finding out what like the cause of it. Like with ADHD, for example, a lot of times it's because you can't get that thought process and you feel that you're not communicating correctly, that you build up that anger and frustration, then lash out.
Yeah.
But like the people that I actually deal with a lot, they are very they're very little aggression.
That's good though. And I'm wondering if it's more prone in kids because of hormones and chemicals and they don't know how to control their bodies as much, or if by the time you're an adult you just know how to better release the anger.
I think when you're an adult, like it's one of the big things is like I made a mistake in my groups when I was doing them, and I'd never stated like my boundaries of the groups. And I had it blow up in my face one time at doing group. So there's only 8 people, and majority of the time, though, most of the time I should say, they're going to be adults. They're going to be in their 30s, 40s, 50s. The 3 things I don't talk about is politics, religion, or abortion. 3 things I just don't talk. I don't really. Hey, vote for whoever you want to vote for. You can tell me all about it. That's fine, but like we're not going to have a really big open discussion about that because I respect your opinion. I want you to do whatever makes you happy. And I didn't set that boundary, and I'll watch adults with mental illness get upset over that, and then it flows into more, and then also we start bringing in, everything else. But just being aggressive in nature towards each other, I don't see.
So you and I are exposed to so much, not just like social media wise, but we both work at a facility. How do you come home and decompress at the end of the night? Because I mean, for both of us, I mean, more so you, because you have the chat line, but I come home off of work and then I'm immediately into it online, trying to put out social media videos about what I saw at work and stuff. So how do you decompress and kind of just separate it?
At about 8 o'clock, I stop responding to all texts and messages. You have to. And you have to realize that I had to realize too, like all you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is good enough. And at first it was really
not take things personal.
Yeah.
That's something I struggle with is I've invested so much time in this kid. I got this kid up and then she's back relapsed in a day. And that's something I think we both have to like learn is not to take kids personally when these people do relapse.
They do relapse, or they do have a breakdown, or they do, even the people that have reached out to me that said, hey, I'm so-and-so's parent, because I don't know if you've had any of these yet. I've had a few of them. I've had a good grip of parents reach out to me and go, hey, can you send me like the screenshot conversations and stuff that you've ever had with my kid? They ended up taking their life. And so like I'll find them on my computer and I'll send them over, and then the parents and I will usually end up talking too about more on the grief side of it. I don't know if you've had that yet. And the one
only in the hospital scenario.
Okay, I've had a decent. I shouldn't say a decent amount. I've had enough that I can say I've had a number of them do that. Even my admins, when I had put my number over into a Google number, they got to experience it. And the mom sending pictures. This is who my daughter was. She was in your Discord. She was actually, I don't know if she was in our Discord, but she had responded through text some. And there's that human connection and more or less letting the parent grieve. But you even in that case look at it of like, hey, all you can do is all you can do. And you're not responsible at a certain extent then for somebody's lives and the actions that they take. All you can kind of do is root them on and root forward for them. And it's hard because you want to kind of save the world. You want to help everybody out there.
Yep.
Not possible.
I find at the end of each shift, I just have to sit in my studio or sit on the porch or something just for like 15 minutes with the phone off and just be like, okay, let's go.
Have you ever had it before where you just drive around in your car by yourself and you just listen to music instead?
There is this meme on Facebook, and it's the Joker is leaving as the hospital is exploding in flames. And I will tell you, there's some days I have never felt more where like you're just like, what? Ours, like I said, it's more SH and aggression. But when I leave, and I'm like, what did I just leave? Like, holy crap, that was like 12 hours of like, how was it 12 hours? Like, because it's constant. And then you get home and you're like, I'm just going to drive around for an hour so that I don't snap on anyone. Let me get a pop. Let me read. My mom will call me. I'm like, Mom, I love you dearly, but you got to give me an hour. I need like, no talk time.
And it's one of those that if somebody hasn't ever experienced it, they don't understand it.
To sit there, and I'm sure you know, to sit with someone in true crisis, and then, I mean, to see some of the stuff too, see a true crisis where you're literally having to talk someone down. You leave at the end of the night, and you do. Like, there are times where I left that hospital and had come home and just the image replayed in my head, or the dreams replayed in my head. And those, like, to me, are the days where I'm like, okay, I really, I picked up way too many hours. I need to next week cut back tomorrow. A lot of times if something happens at the hospital, we get the next day off, or we get like a certain amount of time. And so that is when I'm just like, okay, got to focus on me for a couple hours, and the way I get those images out of my head is I watch videos, or I start talking to friends, because after a couple hours after being home, it kind of starts to diminish, but after is definitely a lot. After
is the most. I mean, my biggest one is like literally if I have I was kind of going through it a little bit. So I drove down to Walmart, which is like 5 miles away or whatever. And then there's a ton of trees around there. And so I went over to the kind of the bush area into the shade and sat in my truck for probably 20 minutes and just listened to music and stuff. And that was my escape time from it all. And then it's like, okay, I feel all better, and I drive back home.
The biggest thing I think that helps me is, especially like, I lost a couple people, and the way I felt most okay was when I was in public, like just the feeling of people being around, because at the time I was then living alone, and just going to Walmart and picking one thing up, or walking around the aisles, or going to the movies because there were people there, just having the presence of people around helped me get over the hump.
And the biggest one is also too, and I don't know how much you've experienced that, but you feel that you have to respond to everybody who's texted you or emailed you or any of that before you go, you're like, I have to have these cleared up. I have to respond to these people. How do you deal with that?
So I tell kids when they message me, I can't do DM. I just can't, because the DMs on Twitter or TikTok, I don't see. So I don't do them on there. But on like Discord and stuff, I tell them, if you message me, I'm going to message you when I have time or when I'm free. Same with email. So email, we're right now getting about 200 a day. And at first I was really overwhelmed, and I was like, Grace, you got to help me. Like, I can't breathe. Like, there's so many. And then I was like, stop. They're reaching out to you. You give them your time. So when someone, says, I emailed you a week ago, okay, look, I'm doing the best I can. I can't wait to respond to you. People get for it. So, and I email them as I go, because I was getting too overwhelmed with the personal messages where I was like, with an email, you can tell me your story and then tell me more, and then I'll respond in a whole 5 paragraph back. Like, that to me is more personal than an hour's worth of personal messages, and then we get to the point. And then an email, you're going to get to it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So with that, I answer them at night when I go to bed. I sit in bed, answer a few, and then I'm like, that's it. That's for tonight.
Mm-hmm. That's good that you got it, because I went through the same thing where it was like, man, I got to respond to all these. And now I'm just used to like looking at my phone, and it's like, oh, it's only at like 600 texts. That's fine. I'll get to them when I get to them. And because it's one of those that I think sometimes people almost expect you to save them. I don't know if you ever get that. And it's like,
do you expect my message to you yesterday?
Yeah.
Or do you have them where they don't understand the boundaries, and because you've answered once, your best friend?
I have never really actually went out and actually talked about that, but that really truly drives me a little bonkers.
It does, because the kids I was talking about that found me on all my social medias, it was, well, I'll check in with you tomorrow. You could send me an email, and then the next day I get 4 texts. Why didn't you answer me? Why didn't you answer me? You answered me. I'm your friend, and it's like professional boundaries. Here's where we're going.
That's one of the big differences I've noticed between teens and adults. Like, so the funny thing is I actually get a ton of adults that do text me from TikTok, but I can respond to them like 3 days later, and and my response is, and it's not meant to be generic. It's what I can do the quickest, the most effective, the most efficient. So when I start really going through text and hammering them out, I will first response is I'll read it real quick. Here for you. And adults will message me back. Hey, thank you so much. This is what I'm struggling with. And, respond to me when you have time. I just appreciate you being there. With a teen, it is this a bot? What's your TikTok ID? Is this really you? Who is it that I'm talking to?
Is this your cell phone?
Yeah.
I get that a lot.
Oh, I get that one a ton. And then all of a sudden it's like every day, then it's do you wake up to good morning emails?
No, it's mostly good morning PM, like DMs. Where it's like, good morning, you didn't answer.
Good morning, how are you? What are you up to today?
Yeah.
I don't know, the same thing I was up to yesterday. I'm responding to people.
Well, and for kids though, I've learned you just have to stop.
Uh-huh.
Because if I'm a kid and I'm like, hey, I can't answer 24/7, like I really need you to focus on the emails, like this is not professional, they're like, well then why would you let me message you in the first place? I didn't. You messaged me. And I didn't answer the first 7 times you did it.
That is true.
What the real trend right now is they find my Facebook and they message me, hey, I watch your TikToks. Can we be friends? No, because Facebook's where I post my memes, and no.
Yeah, and it is hard, and because it's like you, and it's not. I the funny thing is, I think people will take it the wrong way. Then they all of a sudden go, "Well, you don't care."
Yeah.
It has zero to do with that. In fact, if you truly want me to care, you don't want a relationship with me. You don't want a friendship with me, because the more that I care, the more that I'm going to take what you do personal. The more that I'm not going to be willing to help you to the logical extent that I could. I mean, the people that I've been able to ever help out the best, I'm not your friend. We're not going to be friends. And if you really want me to truly help you and go through the shit with you, don't be friends with me. Let me keep it logical, non-emotional, and give you the help, because my thought process is different as a stranger than it is as a friend.
Oh yeah, as a friend, I'm going to be a lot more tough.
Right, and I don't think people necessarily get that, and that's, I think, a harder thing with teens than it is with the adults. Of like, wait, well, why don't you want to be friends? Why don't you like me? And it's like, no, you don't. I actually like you more not knowing you than as soon as I know you, because everything changes. There is a change.
So someone just typed this is really good. So I've learned with my admins, kids are reaching out to them trying to tell them their problems. What do you tell kids? When I tell kids, if your friend listens, fine, but you can't go back to him every time, because that's putting it on another teen who isn't trained to help you, but also you don't know what's going on in their life as a teen. I mean, adults are different, but these are like 11 and 15-year-olds messaging another 11, 15-year-olds their traumas and saying, can you listen? And then constantly telling them every day. A
lot of them. So like, even in the YouTube chat I have here, I have Jiffy's in it, but I saw Ellie. I actually have two teen admins that are in the YouTube chat, and how we work it is peer-to-peer support. And like, I think a teen listening to a teen does help, but that's why we did, like in the Discord, we have the different support channels, so that you essentially say, hey, I need to talk to somebody. In the veteran channel is a completely different conversation of, hey, who's mentally there and not. Because there are times, like with the teens, that that there's a couple teens that they're having a good day. Hey, I'm there. I'll help. Like, let me help. I'll listen. And there's some days that that same person's just like, you know what, my day's going really bad. I need to vent. Who do I vent? You know, who do I share with? And so it goes by who's there, and they kind of, as a collective whole, will say, hey, I'll take this one, or I'll take
What
this
about
one.
a school setting? Like, how would you advise a kid trying to reach out to a friend for help, or constantly going, because that's our thing at the hospital, the kids try to fix each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be like, you gotta focus on you right now, hon. Like, you're not in a mental capacity where you can take on 4 other traumas and fix them.
That I tell people the most that you are not a therapist. Well, I want to help my friend. They have anxiety, or they have depression, or they're self-harming, or they're suicidal. Okay, how do you know they're suicidal? Well, let me calm that right now. Statistics show already the kid told you that they're suicidal. They're not suicidal. Just be a friend and listen. You're not a therapist. You're not a counselor. You're not a doctor. You're none of that. Listen and don't listen to respond. The most amazing gift that you can do is zone the whole thing out and just, yeah. You have no idea how many conversations I've gotten through on text messages that my responses are like 3-word responses, and I'm getting these big ones. And at the end, they're like, man, thank you so much
for listening.
You know what I mean? You're just like, what?
That's actually, speaking of that, I want to add that to mine too. I loved how yours had a vent part.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That way, get it out. Someone can respond and listen. Like that, I liked that. I was like, that's a good idea. That way it can just be out there.
And the cool thing with having it where it does it even delete off is the fact that I can go there and see what other people have vented about. One, sometimes even relate, but knowing that I'm not the only one venting. You know what I mean? That's one of the really nice things about when it comes to, like, with that of leaving the chats up there, is it's not necessarily reliving it, but it allows other people to say, hey, everybody else is venting, so it's okay for me to vent too.
Right.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of times, especially even with teens and even with adults, anybody who knows me in my life, if they need to vent, they tell me right up front, hey, I need to vent to you. I mean, that's in our communication. Like, I need to vent to you. As soon as you say that, great, I will be the best. Okay, what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, it's funny because you'll see other people then get frustrated if you don't tell somebody that you're venting. And then all of a sudden, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And then the other person gets pissed, and now we're not friends anymore. And now we're just going our own separate ways. That's one of the things that's why we also called it a venting channel, because that's what it is. It's venting. You're not going to go DM the person after they vent and go, let me fix you.
I thought that was great.
Yeah. Trying to catch up with the chat here for a minute. See if I missed anything. It's DM catching up moment time.
So how do you think alcohol weakens the stigma?
I think it's a stigma that the only way that it will end is you have to get it's not necessarily is it the people that struggle with mental illness. You have to attack it at a lot of different angles of there is no competition in mental health, like you talked about. I mean, you bringing that up is one of the best points I think ever, because so many people do that. I have this, well, I have this, well, I have this, that competition amongst mental health, to watching how people that struggle with mental illness, one, getting them to realize that anyone else struggling, it's okay just to walk away from them. Not everyone's going to like you. You don't have to like everybody. If they're struggling, let them be. You struggle too, let them be. And then to have the people that don't struggle per se realize that, hey, let them share and let them be, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? That's what prevents all the down talking on it. That's what prevents all of that stigma initially that goes with it. Because even like with me, I feel that I've added to the stigma at times. And the sole fact, if I do a very emotional response to something because I don't agree with it and I go off the deep end, all I do is, yeah, see, he's the crazy person. Look what he just did. See, and that literally adds to the stigma. Now, I did it myself. And that's why I think having just that support for people out there where you don't do that lash out makes a huge difference. Why? What about you? I'm curious on this one. That's a good question.
Hold on, sorry. Someone asked for the Discord thing. To me, I think it's a mixture of, it's so tough because to me, it's more of the fact that we get people to stop making fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we stop glorifying 13 Reasons Why the whole time. We stop, there's a part for a second because Grace just got home. But it's more the fact that we stop glorifying the idea of leaving notes behind for everyone to find secretly 10 different places, or stop using.
You can get in the US or in the UK. It does ship. They ship overseas. One of the hardest but best things, friends don't make me feel better. I need to work through this and feel
They're
it.
a little excited Grace is home.
That's funny.
Stop glorifying it when there are kids who really need it, or there's adults who really need it. Like, stop making fun of, oh, I'm going to go be put on medicine, or just the bullying of it. Because there's so much I see from the hospital side with these kids that it's like they come to, I can't wait to make a YouTube video about this day. It's going to be so funny because we didn't do anything. And it's like, no. So for me, like, that's my big thing, is also bringing awareness, also getting people to stop making fun of it, stop glorifying what medicine does, stop glorifying what a vacation at hospital can do, that kind of stuff. Stop playing Hannah Baker's audio on TikTok, because I saw one the other night that just pissed me off, and it was when your parents don't let you go out during quarantine. It was Hannah Baker's voice saying, if you hear this message, it's why. And it says, my mom won't let you leave. Like, seriously, you're going to say you're going to kill yourself because your parents won't let you leave during quarantine? Because you want to see your boyfriend. Like, what about the kid who is writing those notes at home right now because that's truly how they feel, but you're making fun of it, so they're going to leave without a note for closure? Like, that kind of thing for me is really where, because I see so many kids, and I go through their notebook. It's like, I don't care. Like, you write something down, I'm going to, because you're planning stuff there. You're not going to sign on my wall. And so put the notes, and it's like, and half of them are, they're like, if you find safe room, then because if you, and it's like, no, stop trying to hide us by a little hospital, talk to us, that kind of thing. So just the glorified of it drives me nuts.
The glorification of it's hard, and it's very frustrating. And a lot of the shows, when it comes to suicide, I don't think that there's so much truly non-awareness about it. Most people don't realize that suicide is the second leading cause of death in 10-year-old to 19-year-olds. I mean, that is the second leading cause of death in 10-year-old to 19-year-olds, not teenagers.
The whole pre-ad unit.
Yeah.
Our pre-ads come in at 6.
Yeah.
If you're telling me your 6-year-old knows how to do it, then there's something wrong.
Right. And the only way you're ever going to lessen that number is you have to, in a way, humanize it to people being comfortable and not kicking the shit under the rug. Or when you do talk about suicide, like the thing that has really irritated me the most with 13 Reasons Why, one, okay, you do a season, and I never even did YouTubes and stuff on it. I had people ask me about it. You do a season on it, and to me, can make a complete mockery. I actually cried a lot during watching it. I actually did have a little bit of emotion to it. More in the reason that that's not how it is. That's not how it is. You don't understand what it's like to go, and I mean, the reality of it is I had to go down to Yuma to identify my wife's body and stuff like that. I'm driving from California to Yuma the whole time now after being told the day before that she committed suicide. Awesome. So now I'm living with a 4-hour drive, that going through my head on the phone with my parents, like, what the fuck, to get down there to be like, okay, are you sure that you're ready to see the body, that the body's not cleaned up? It was asphyxiation. So there is vomit, all that stuff all over, because when you suffocate, I mean, people don't realize the reality, the gore, the nightmare with it, that there is nothing sexy and sleek and attention seeking about this. When I, like, I mean, I can get into detail, even like when I attempted to commit my suicide, I did this. It was interesting because I did a podcast with the individual, Overcoming You, and him and I connected on the same level. We both attempted suicide. And when you really truly know somebody's attempted suicide, especially in an adult, you literally feel so much of a burden that you leave the cleanup stuff behind. He was going to take his life in a hotel room, and he literally had a note for the cleaning people and had $100 bill in there because he was going to feel so bad about the mess he was going to leave behind. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's not, hey, let's do a bunch of cassettes.
Well, and two, like, I had a different view on it, of the movie, though, like, at first, because when I first started watching the movie, I wasn't at a kid's psych hospital. So for me, it was just like, this is a stupid movie. I was like, why would you want kids to pay attention to this? And then at the time, I hate to admit it, but at the time, I couldn't understand why everyone was so upset over it. I was like, look, you know, this, and that. And then I started working in a psych hospital. I was like, this movie's literally the worst thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for 2.5 years now, and once I started working there, I was like, this is not the movie. This is not glorified. This is not, you know, what we're talking about. And the kids come in and it drives me nuts. You ask them, what did you do? Well, I left note all around the school for my friends to find. Really? Because while you're doing that, someone else is actually, you know, in a tough spot. And it's like, where'd you get the idea from? And they're like, oh, 13 Reasons Why. And so I think that movie, and how they drag it on. There's now 2 or 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm. And that's the part that was really messed up, is that they extended it. And like, at first I thought it was okay, it's a limited series, whatever. And then, of course, they had the whole cast in the beginning. If you or anybody is struggling, you know, don't put this.
If they're struggling, they're not going to watch the movie.
Yeah.
I can't imagine me being in a crisis state being like, this is what I want to watch.
Right. No. And that's the stuff, though, that I think glorifies, you know, people going and not wanting to speak out about suicide. Because when I attempted suicide, nobody knew. No one knew until afterwards. And the only thing that literally saved my life is frozen vodka. And if that vodka hadn't been dumped out and water put into it, I wouldn't be here. I would be dead. That is what saved. It wasn't anybody else externally, because I didn't reach out for help. I didn't tell anyone what I was going through. And that's typically what it is, and people don't get that. And I'm not going to reach out for help because I don't want anyone to. I'm already a big enough burden. I don't want anyone to think less of me even more, and any of that.
No, and half of what I do when I'm at work is it's the quiet ones.
Yeah.
The quiet ones get all my attention. Because little Sally, who's over in the corner just sitting there like this, she's going through some stuff in her head that she's trying to plan. The one over there that's like, I didn't get an apple, like starts doing stuff to herself or starts like ripping up paper to get attention. I'm going to correct. But at the end of the day, the one who's quiet in the corner that's just staring off into space, who looks sad, that's the one I have to be concerned about, because that's the one who's coming up with something, whether it's in here or outside.
And those are the messages that I am actually always the most worried about, is the ones is because I get a bunch. I'm going to kill myself tonight or whatever. I get tons of those. Or here's my self-harm scar. You know, I just self-harm tonight. Whatever. You're doing it for people, but you can the way that it's typed out, or the way that the message is to you, is very hollow, and you can almost pick up on that. And you're like, what's going on? And next thing you know, through the conversation, you finally start drawing some of the stuff, and you're like, dude, you're the one that needs the fucking help. Like, okay. And
when we're doing admins and you're being admin, what do you do? I punched a wall because I told my mom I was going to do it and she got mad. And then there's the kid that's sitting there and they're like, what'd you do? And they're like, I just had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, this one's sleeping out here by me tonight on the boat. Mm-hmm. And that one's going.
Yeah.
Because you just get a vibe. You get a sense of like they feel hopeless, and you feel it.
That is to me the scariest emotion in the world. I was actually going to do a YouTube video on it today. Was the scariest emotion to me, the most freaked out emotion is hopeless. It's not anger, it's not rage, it's not depression, it's not anxiety, it's none of that. It's when that true hopelessness sinks in, that's when your brain starts going of like, that's like the most painful thing you could ever have, is when there is truly no hope.
Or when you just sit there and cry, like the ones who come in and immediately the first thing the therapist will say are like, what's going on? Like, can we talk? And they just bawl. Mm-hmm. And that's when I'm like, oh, okay, like, breathe. Mm-hmm. We're going to get through this. You can stay whenever, like, let's talk. Like, mm-hmm. You need to be in here. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of give them the more affection because you're like, they're going through some stuff. Yeah. And you can just tell.
You totally can. And you that's when you start realizing who's going through the shit and who's not. Yeah. That's the hardest one for me is how do you handle this one? This is actually good because you deal with teens. I'm going to kill myself. My life is over because I just broke up with somebody, or I was dumped, or my girlfriend or boyfriend cheated on me, or my relationship fell apart, or my boyfriend left me. How?
Or they pull the I'm pregnant. We get that all the time. They come in and they go, I'm pregnant. My boyfriend broke up with me, and I'm going to kill myself. And we're like, your P-cup just said you weren't pregnant. And in their head, they're pregnant, but they're not. Uh-huh. And that's their way of justifying, well, I'm pregnant. That said it wasn't, but I got 3 people that married the person they were with at 14.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So let me tell you, you're a kid.
But you don't understand. It was true love.
Oh, yeah.
I truly loved them. It was true love.
Luckily, we don't get a lot of that. I can name a couple where they played the pregnancy scare.
Okay.
So that we can try to, because I think they'll be able to call the person while they're at the hospital and be like, please don't leave me. Like, which in reality, they can't make phone calls unless it's a parent approved by the state. So we explain to them, and they want to know, they're like, well, I'm going to get back with them, or ours tend to take a more aggressive side. They're like, well, I'm going to beat the crap out of the person he's dating next. Like, I'm going to show them. And you're like, why? So you can get charges as a minor and then develop into an aggressive adult? Like, think this through now. And then they leave and they think they're gay because they're on the girls' unit. So the girls' unit has a lot of, like, gay drama that goes on.
That's funny because, like, I get a ton of people who reach out that are like, hey, I'm really depressed and all this. And so much of it revolves around what I found with teens, especially. It's a little different. Like with adults, I found it like I'll get adults who will reach out and they're like, hey, I'm going through this. But then I find out next thing, they're being beat by their husband, or they're being like real, like, okay, yeah, no, let's get you out of that situation. Here's RAIN. Here's these other organizations. Let's help you. But as a teen, it's like, it's the hardest thing for me to even talk to them because I get it all the time of like, man, really depressed because they broke up with me, or I broke up with them. And I'm like, man, I've been married 4 times.
Right.
Like, trust me, there's 7.7 billion people on the planet.
We have a major issue.
Right. Okay, good. I'm not the only one then. I haven't gotten the I'm pregnant one though.
We get a lot of that. Or we get a lot of the whole the really bad one for me is when they have kids and they come in and they're minors. Mm-hmm. We get 15-year-olds who have a kid, or a 13-year-old has 13-year-olds who have kids, and when they come to us, their kid goes into the system because they're a minor.
Right.
So either they can get it or it goes to foster care because they're labeled as unstable.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's also one part I hate, because then I had a girl who I adored. She's 16. She's got a kid. Tried to, made some unhappy comments. It definitely was not harming. Was like actually doing it.
Right.
And she comes in and she's like, my baby is in foster care now, and I'm heartbroken, and I reached out for help, but all of my friends and family told me that I gotta live my baby now. It's not all about me. And
right.
That hurt so bad, because to me it was like her friends and family were then just validating and saying your mental health doesn't matter. You need to be there for yourself. When in reality, had someone just said, hey, you need to go to the doctor, or maybe rehab, or therapy. Some people would have saved her for than trying to do it because everyone was telling her, no, you can't feel that way. You have to sit down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, and I totally agree on that. It's just, it's hard because there's so many angles when it comes to, mental health, and when it comes to mental illness, and when it comes to, the teens versus the adults, that it's such a huge thing that it's like, okay, you have to eat it little pieces at a time and go after little pieces at a time.
You know what I do love? So you and I both have our set of anxiety or self-harming coping skills. And they're completely different. But I've seen your videos on them before, and then I have my own set. So, like, I know you do Sour Patch Kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tell kids, like the sour spray?
Mm-hmm.
I have them do that. This was before I even saw or knew your videos. Because, like, for me, I do kids, I do kinetic dance. Or when they're writers, I say rip paper.
Mm-hmm.
The sound feeling are going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because it's how did you learn these?
Myself. It was something that in college, and honestly, when I was like 22 and struggling, I wanted to feel something. I hate to admit I self-harm, but I didn't do it deep enough to cause scars, because in my head I knew I wanted to be in mental health and into nursing, and I knew if I did, that was what kept me from going inpatient. And that sounds silly. Like
no, it doesn't sound silly, because I think a lot of kids can actually relate to this, because I will bring it up really big on that. Nobody even picked up on the one video. There's a difference in the self-harm scars of yes, it is that unhealthy coping mechanism, but you do need to kind of remotely feel something. My self-harm scar here was a suicide attempt. I mean, nobody realized. I have multiple, and it's not this way, it's this way. That you can tell how somebody self-harms because there's a pattern to it, all of that stuff. But people can relate to it, and it's okay. It's okay if you self-harm that way, even though like later on I want to do this, but it's addressing the issue at hand. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, because that's a really good point.
Because I'd be like, no. But then just the feeling of it, just,
Mm-hmm.
that to me was all I needed. And then at one point I was like, I think I'd say senior in college, and it was very few and in between even then, but I was like, what am I going to do? I'm an athlete. Like, I can't have this showing. And then I remember YouTubing actually coping skills, because I was like, I got to do this. And I saw someone say ripping up paper was the best kind of thing. So I remember viciously ripping up paper and being like, oh, that kind of gets it out. Or like, for me, I tried that Skittles, but I always loved like the spray stuff. And for me, it was just like, it would snap me out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but I felt like as a college athlete, it was very much if you got caught or anyone knew of it, it was labeled as a letdown. It was labeled as you're pathetic. It was labeled as you can't even come to class or go to school. Like, what's wrong with you? So I think that was really what kept me from I would say half doing it, like just doing
Mm-hmm.
it to feel, not doing it to cause pain. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's such a weird boundary. Like,
But it makes sense, and because I think there are a lot of people that do self-harm in that case, because you can tell who's really self-harmed, and who hasn't, versus who has scars, truly has scars later on in life, or who is saying, hey, I have scars, but it's those superficial wounds that are essentially healing, that give them 3 months and they're gone.
for me, like, if you looking back, like, had someone seen my arm, you would think it was superficial, but in reality, it was me knowing that if I did it too deep, I'd be taken out of sports.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just for me to release the pain, but be able to reel myself in. And I think, and that's why when I see college athletes who are struggling, I reach out, because I get the mentality. You ask for help, and it gets out. Like, I don't know how it gets out, but I remember I went to the school and asked for help, and before the end of the day, my coach texted me, my parent texted me. I'm 22. My teammates knew, like, I'm not going to let it out. But then it was like I was being shunned. So it's one of those things where it was like I had to walk a very fine border, like how to express myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think help me because I was like, okay, now we really got to find coping skills. But then it was kind of like, I'm kind of like in this tunnel because now I feel like everyone's staring at me.
Right. But the big thing is that you found coping skills, because that's the thing that always, like, I learned all mine too. Mine was all trial and error of like what worked for me and what not. I mean, even down to the sense, like one of my forms of self-harm was I hit myself. Like I could give myself black and blue eyes. I mean, I would get done and it would look like I got done in a fight. To the point that if I need to punch cushions, I punch cushions. Mine is though very aggressive aggression that I kind of need to feel it through my body. So like I have a punching dummy now that I punch. And it's that release of emotions. It's the reason. Okay, now I feel better. Okay, now back at it.
Like for paper, the sound of it, I hate that sound. I hate the sound of real like straight. The sound of it was like, oh, what is that? And then you don't want to get a paper cut, so you're kind of watching where you're going with it. And at the same time, you're ripping it.
Uh-huh.
That was like every time I was there, I would just sit there and it was something that helped.
It is, and that's a good one. That's the thing that I just always have realized that therapists will always say, work on your breathing. And I'm like,
and I do my breathing videos, but I do my breathing videos for when I remember when I would have anxiety attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Just it tells you to breathe. But if you're in crisis and self-harming, breathing is not going to do that.
Right. It's not. And it also, even like with me, like with my anxiety attacks, my problem with my anxiety attacks and panic attacks, if I try to worry about breathing, I end up stop breathing. And then I get to that point where I'm like gasping for air and hyperventilating. I mean, the whole reason they have you, and there is science behind it, why the paper bag is because you see it inflate and deflate. It has nothing to do with what you're inhaling or exhaling, but to focus on it. But even then it's like, and that's where I started going, okay, well, shit, I'm going to try this or I'm going to try this. And then I started building anxiety kits and all that stuff for myself of what works.
This has worked, and I make my kids play with them. When they're stressed at work, I'll take this. And just the process of sensory, where instead of worrying what's around them, they can just feel it. I mean, again, 26 here, I have enormous amounts of sand.
Well,
understand at any age what you have to have.
well, hold on. I'm 39 and I got my sand. We do. Dude, I love it. Dude, the Walmart, I get it at Walmart because it's like 39 cents.
I played with it the whole time.
The other one that I actually enjoy is Play-Doh.
I love the smell of Play-Doh.
Oh, there's just something about Play-Doh that's comforting, and you can sit and you can just roll it. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, I would sit and roll it into little balls, and just this whole action doing it, you forget about everything else around you, and you smell it. And it has kind of that cold, waxy-ish feeling on you, and it's slowly forgetting everything that's going on, and that's a lot of what people don't realize and understand. And I love the fact that, you know, therapists don't really teach you a lot of that stuff. And that's why it was so interesting, even when I had seen your videos on the different coping and even your breathing videos, but how you would talk, it was like, people don't realize that, you know, there's so many tricks out there, but it's also find what works for you.
And to me, when I am an anxiety attack, I try to base this off of, I mean, it won't help anyone, but when I would have an anxiety attack when I first came out, Grace would be like talking to me, like, breathe. And just the confidence in my voice is what, so like for my breathing, all I wanted is to lay down on the ground in a dark room and just listen to my voice being off, not hyper, like, it's gonna be okay. Breathe, like just the positive flow. That's all I want to take.
Mm-hmm. And it's true. I mean, there's so much truth to that, and I wish people would realize that, because the only hard part that I find is, do you notice that you share tons and tons of coping techniques, but then people keep asking you on coping techniques, and you're like, I got a lot of them. I've shared them.
That's what all of mine are. What do you want? Like, because we can't make them up. And what I know ripping paper helps a lot of my kids at work. I know and calms them down. But some people do want to punch the wall. I mean, buy a punching bag, do what you do. But what helps you is help you. It's just how it is.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing that I don't think people get. Like, what helps me might not help you, but don't give up.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and that's where I think a lot of people lose it at.
You can cure depression.
Mm-hmm.
I'm living my best life right now. It's because I've chosen to cut out all the negative stuff. But there's still some days where I go home and I'm wiped. And it's not because I had a bad day. It's not because I don't have support or friends. I'm just having a bad day. And that's what I wish people would understand, or like even adults or parents. Like, you're not going to cure your kids' depression.
Right. Them being, I mean, I have my bad moments. I mean, I have bad moments every day almost, it seems like, but it's in what I do. And that's why people will be like, well, what helps? And I tell people, goals and passions help. Having stuff that you really enjoy helps. I mean, there's a lot of that different stuff out there that helps. But it's one of those that you got to realize there isn't that easy fix.
No, it's not just gonna.
Chewing on hoodie strings too helps. Actually, have you ever had one of those anxiety necklaces? I have to get one of those, so I haven't tried one of them.
Been to an extent, because a lot of our kids, I could not recommend at our hospital just because of how aggressive they are.
Right.
It would. No, I actually haven't.
Yeah. So I haven't done anything on stress balls.
So this stuff. So I have. Here's my kitchen. So I carried this in my wallet. I actually stole it from Grace. This one's peppermint, but peppermint and lavender calm me down. Like, if I'm anxious, this stuff, even if you have a headache, you put it on here and you can smell it for 5 hours, and that's all I need. There's also, I have a necklace that's a heart, and you put droplets in it of scent. That helps me too. Those are my two things that I live by.
That's awesome. Yeah, my two biggest go-tos are like, actually one of them is now, and somebody actually told me of this one, and I tried it. It became the best of the best. Is salt packets. I love salt packets now, and warheads.
Put salt in your mouth.
If you're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, and you just you can't get it together at all. Salt packets are really small, so they fit in your pocket really easily. And you steal them. You don't steal them. You borrow them from restaurants for free. And you literally just open it up, dump the salt in your mouth. That shock of the salt, anything in here, any disassociation, derealization, anything in here leaves very quickly because everything went to your mouth.
That's interesting.
And you are, I mean, it is probably the best. And then not only that, but I don't know, have you ever had an anxiety attack where you've like kind of calmed yourself down and then all of a sudden it starts hitting again and it just comes right back? With that, now that you put it on your mouth, you're just like, this is the grossest thing in the world. Your mouth is starting to water. It's horrible. And your thought process, can't go back into your head because now your thought process is shifted to, what did I put in my mouth? Now I need to find something to drink. Now you drink something. Now you're going, that was just horrible. And you forgot even what the whole buildup of the anxiety was.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Wouldn't have thought of that though.
The other one, you've been an athlete before. People have asked me, how do I help my friend? They struggle, they have panic disorder and they get really bad panic attacks that are like paralyzing and crippling. I was like, get smelling salt. You know, the smelling salt for athletes? I mean, I've been knocked out a few times. I used to play soccer. That ammonia smell of that will bring you to reality fast.
It'll bring you to the going up too.
Oh yeah.
All of that. I'm good.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that literally, like, there are those easy, quick fix-it-alls out there, but you got to also kind of know what you're doing because the last thing you really want to do is like hold it under someone's nose and then have them throwing up. But yeah, I mean, it was just finding, man, what can really shock my senses that bring me back to reality. Because there's nothing worse than going through that and people are yelling at you and stuff or trying to talk to you. You don't even realize they're there. Well, we got to do some videos together. I enjoy this. This is actually pretty cool.
It is. I really enjoy being able to talk to someone who's as enthused about it and like really wants to make a difference.
I am too, and it's not often that, you know, it's one of those that I think a lot of people, the more that they see other people out there sharing their story and throwing themselves out there, the more that they become finally comfortable sharing their story. And I think that's a lot of what also breaks the stigma is when you see so many different people, colors, and all of that, you know, sharing their story. Dog, stop. Those are mine.
You're happy. You should. I can be where you're at.
Right. Right. The we should Zoom. Have you ever tried Zoom? I've never tried Zoom.
You know what we're actually doing, which if you pull against the kids didn't have fun this year, so I'm using the phone to TikTok. My computer going and Grace's computer going because you can fit about 5 in them, and then we're about 2,000 kids there. I'm gonna play defense. Have you seen my life?
No.
Look at that. I have disco lights.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're just gonna put a prom on for them. I ordered off of Amazon some prom decorations. And if you want to join in on the live and have your guys on, we're gonna have a big prom.
Dude, I love that idea. I will have to get with the teens and
We don't have a prom, we're missing out. And I was like, I got you. And you know what? We're gonna do special too for graduation if everyone's graduation camp.
I love that. I like that idea. I definitely will get in on that with you.
I bought new lights just for the dance party Friday night.
That is so cool. That is so awesome. I love it. I love what you're doing. I love what you're about. It's awesome. I'm very, very glad that you had reached out. Right. And it's awesome because you meet those people and then they inspire you in different ways too. That's so cool. Well, I'm going to let you go. It's 4:00 my time. I know it's 6:00 your time. I'll let you get to it. But I will definitely be in touch with you.
It was so good to talk to you.
You too. I love this. So we're going to have to do this again.
Oh, definitely. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. All right. I love you guys. Love you guys. Love you guys.
Those who are whining.
All right. So I appreciate you guys being part of that. It was actually it was great to be able to have a chance to share with her. I'm going to be jumping off of this. You guys are all amazing, and I love you all. And just keep fighting at it, and just know this: that you got this shit. So love you guys.
Buddy, it smells bad.